It could crack a planet. Dr. Lee's voice was quiet. That's exactly what we need now. Across the solar system, humanity's war machine roared to life. Shipyards on Mars doubled their production. Weapon factories on Mercury's dark side began running at full capacity. The asteroid belt's mining operations redirected all resources to the war effort. In her office at Earth Defense Headquarters, Admiral Song reviewed the latest intelligence from Jinnah's transmissions. The girl had mapped the entire station, documented their defenses, even found weaknesses in their shields. She was doing more damage with a neural implant than most intelligence agencies could do with years of effort. "Sir," her aide interrupted, "Dr. Lee reports Nemesis will be ready in 48 hours. And there's something else. Every retired military officer in the system is requesting reinstatement. Every civilian ship is offering to carry supplies or troops. Even the deep space miners want to help." Admiral Song nodded. The Council had awakened something they couldn't possibly understand. Humanity's primal need to protect its children. They thought they were dealing with a primitive species barely able to reach their own moon. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In orbit above Earth, ships from every nation gathered. Chinese destroyers flew alongside American carriers. Russian battle cruisers formed up with European squadrons. The largest fleet humanity had ever assembled was taking shape. Dr. Lee's team worked through the night, pushing Nemesis to its limits. The weapon had been designed to break up asteroids humanely, minimizing damage to potential microbial life. Now, with its safeties removed, it could tear a planet apart at the atomic level. "We're not just going to rescue the children," Admiral Song told her commanders. "We're going to make sure this never happens again. The Council thinks we're primitive. Let's show them what primitive humans do when you hurt our young." The fleet grew larger by the hour. Ships that had once pointed weapons at each other now flew as one. Crews that had trained to fight each other now trained together, preparing for a different kind of war. In her cold chamber on Station Delta, Jinnah felt the change through her neural link. Her transmissions were being received. Help was coming. She sent one more message to Earth. A complete schedule of the station's shield rotations, their most vulnerable moments. Admiral Song received the data personally. She looked at the young girl's neural signature, at the strength it took to remain clear-headed enough to gather intelligence while being tortured. "Hold on," she whispered to the screen. "We're coming." The Council had made a terrible mistake. They had taken human children, thinking they were just test subjects. Instead, they had sparked a war they couldn't possibly win. Humanity wasn't just awake, it was angry. In the darkness of space, Earth's fleet prepared for battle. Nemesis powered up in its lunar cradle, and in stations across the solar system, humans put aside their differences, united in a single purpose. The giant was awake, and it was coming for its children. The assault team's ship cut silently through space, running dark as it approached Station Delta. Commander Kim Do-hyun watched through his tactical display as Jinnah's last transmission guided them perfectly between the station's sensor gaps. His team of 30 elite soldiers waited in full combat gear, weapons ready. "Remember," he spoke softly into the team channel, "primary objective is the children. Everything else is secondary." Jinnah's data shows them spread across 3 detention levels. We hit fast, we hit hard, and we get our kids out. The station's shields flickered exactly as Jinnah had predicted. In that brief moment, 3 assault ships slipped through. They latched onto the hull like parasites, cutting tools already burning through the metal. Inside Station Delta, alarms blared. Director Krell rushed to the control center, his 6 eyes wide with disbelief. Impossible. How did they bypass our defenses? What they didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that their children were stronger than anyone imagined. In a cold research facility light years away, Jinnah Park was already planning their escape. She had discovered that her neural implant, a standard medical device given to all human children, could interface with the alien technology around her. While the Council scientists conducted their cruel experiments, she was gathering information. sending out weak distress signals and waiting for the right moment. Back on New Seoul, Governor Han stood at his office window, watching the Marine patrols pass by. The colony's once peaceful streets now felt like a war zone. In his hand, he held a report about strange energy signatures detected at the edge of the system. The council ships were still out there, watching, waiting for another chance to strike. But this time, humanity was ready. This time, they would protect their children. And soon, very soon, they would make the Galactic Council pay for every tear shed, every empty bedroom, every shattered family. The council thought they had chosen easy targets. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. In the Park household, Jinna's room remained exactly as she had left it. Her unfinished drawing still lay on her desk, the rainbow flower missing its final colors. Her mother kept it there, touching it gently each night before bed, promising the empty room that they would find her. They would find all of them. And then the galaxy would learn why you should never, ever harm a human child. The once peaceful colony of New Seoul had changed forever. But in that change, something new was brewing. A rage that would soon reshape the galaxy itself. Station Delta hung in the dark void of space like a twisted metal spider, its research arms stretching out from a central hub. Inside one of these arms, Director Krull stood before a wall of screens, each showing a different human child undergoing tests. His long, silver fingers tapped against the control panel as he watched with 6 dark eyes. "Fascinating," he muttered, zooming in on Jinna's readings. "These humans continue to surprise us. Their children especially show remarkable adaptability." He turned to his assistant, who nervously shuffled data tablets. "Did you see these neural patterns? Even under extreme stress, they maintain coherent thought processes." Jinna lay strapped to a cold metal table in Chamber 12, her small body secured by energy restraints that hummed with a soft blue light. Today's test involved exposure to various atmospheric pressures. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as the air thinned, but her vital signs remained surprisingly stable. "Sir," one of the junior researchers approached Krell. "We've received another warning from the diplomatic division. They're concerned about potential human retaliation. Perhaps we should consider." Krell waved a silver hand dismissively. "Humans are barely space-capable. They can't even reach half their own solar system effectively. What retaliation could they possibly mount against the Galactic Council?" He turned back to the screens. "Continue the tests." In her chamber, Jinna focused on breathing. The air was thin, making each breath a struggle, but she refused to panic. Instead, she reached out with her mind, using the neural implant all human children received at birth. While the aliens watched her body's responses, they remained unaware that her consciousness was sliding through their computer systems like a ghost. The neural implant had been designed for medical monitoring and emergency communications, but here, surrounded by advanced alien technology, Jinna had discovered it could do so much more. During moments of clarity between tests, she explored their networks, learning their language, understanding their systems. In the chamber next to hers, Young Ho was undergoing a different kind of test. They were exposing him to various energy fields, studying how his body adapted. Jinna could hear his muffled cries through the wall. She reached out with her mind, touching his neural implant, sending comfort. "Stay strong. Help will come." "Director," another researcher called out. "Subject 23 is showing unusual brainwave patterns." Krell moved to examine Young Ho's readings. "Increase the intensity. Let's see how far we can push this adaptation." Jinna felt Young Ho's pain through their connected implants. Her anger gave her focus. While they tortured her friend, she dug deeper into their systems, gathering data about Station Delta, about the Galactic Council, about their weaknesses. She packaged this information into tiny bursts of data, sending them out through the station's communication array, aimed toward Earth. President Choi smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "We're not as primitive as you think." Jinna Park, a 7-year-old human child, broke through your best security systems with a medical implant. Imagine what our adults can do. The chamber erupted in voices as more representatives pledged support to Earth. The Council's diplomats looked increasingly worried. They had expected Earth to beg for mercy or attempt negotiation. Instead, they faced absolute resolve. 24 hours, President Choi repeated. After that, humanity will show you exactly what primitive means. As the delegates filed out, carrying Earth's message to their homeworlds, Admiral Song approached the podium. The fleet is ready, Madam President. At your command. President Choi nodded. They won't surrender. They're too proud, too convinced of their superiority. Make sure our allies' ships are clear of Council space before we begin. The message spread across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, beings watched the evidence of the Council's crimes. They saw the rescued children, heard their stories, understood the depth of the atrocities committed. In the medical facility where the rescued children were recovering, Jin Ah watched the broadcast with her parents. When President Choi finished speaking, she turned to her father. They're really going to fight, aren't they? Park Min-ho hugged his daughter close. They hurt children. Our children. The galaxy needs to learn that some lines can't be crossed. As the 24-hour deadline approached, humanity prepared for war. Not a war of conquest or resources, but a war of justice. A war to protect children, not just human children, but all children. The Council had awakened something they didn't understand. They thought they were dealing with primitives. They were about to learn that sometimes primitive wasn't a weakness. Sometimes primitive meant being willing to burn down the galaxy to protect what matters most. The countdown began. Humanity was going to war. The bridge of the UES Infinity fell silent as Fleet Admiral Song studied the holographic display of the target world. Calax 7, an uninhabited Council planet used for weapons research. The perfect test site for humanity's response. Begin the countdown, she ordered, her voice carrying no emotion. All ships maintain safe distance. We only get one chance to demonstrate what Project Nemesis can do. The massive weapon, mounted on a specially built carrier ship, powered up slowly. Its energy readings climbed higher than anything humanity had ever created before. Dr. Lee's voice came through the comm system. Device at 90% capacity. Target locked. The Council had ignored their ultimatum, just as expected. Now they would learn the price of their arrogance. Fire. The beam that struck Calax 7 was almost beautiful. It pierced the planet's crust, like a needle through paper. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the planet began to crack, brilliant lines of energy spreading across its surface like glowing veins. Energy reaction spreading through planetary core, reported the science officer. Breakup imminent. Calax 7 didn't explode, it disintegrated. The planet cracker lived up to its name, reducing an entire world to fragments no larger than a small asteroid. Where a planet had been, now floated a new asteroid field. Admiral Song opened a channel to all Council frequencies. This was a demonstration. You have one more chance to surrender. On the UES Vengeance, Captain Yoon Ha-won watched the destruction with grim satisfaction. His hand touched the photo of his son he kept on his command console, one of the children rescued from Station Delta. The boy's nightmares still hadn't stopped. The Council's response came within hours. More arrogance, more threats. They couldn't believe that humanity would dare strike their core worlds. They were wrong. 3 days later, the planet cracker turned its attention to Vex Prime, the Council's primary shipyard world. This time, they made sure to wait until all civilian ships had evacuated. Humanity would have its revenge, but they wouldn't become monsters in the process. Captain Yoon led the attack on the research facilities. His fleet struck simultaneously at 12 different stations, each one a mirror of Station Delta. The Vengeance's weapons burned through their defenses like paper. Life on the colony of New Seoul had always been peaceful. The settlers had built their homes beneath the twin moons of Kepler 4 bits, creating a slice of Earth among the stars. Gardens bloomed with Earth flowers mixed with local plants, and children played in carefully maintained parks under purple-tinted skies. The first disappearance barely caused a ripple. 6-year-old Min-Ki vanished during an afternoon nap, leaving his bed empty and cold. His parents searched frantically, but found no signs of forced entry, no struggle, nothing but a stuffed bear dropped near his bedroom window. The colony police investigated, but with no evidence of foul play. They eventually filed it as an unfortunate accident. 2 weeks later, another child disappeared. This time it was 9-year-old Sunmei from the agricultural district. Like Min-Ki, she vanished without a trace. Her mother had only stepped away for 5 minutes to check on dinner. When she returned, Sunmei's homework lay unfinished on her desk, her pencil still warm from her grip. The colony began to whisper, "2 children don't just vanish into thin air." Parents kept their children closer, installed security systems, and formed neighborhood watch groups. But it wasn't enough. Jinna Park was 7 years old when they took her. She had been drawing pictures of the colony's famous rainbow flowers, her dark hair tied back in neat pigtails, her small hands covered in colored marker stains. Her mother, working in the hydroponics lab just next door, had checked on her every 30 minutes. At 3:45 p.m. colony time, Jinna was coloring a particularly detailed flower. At 4:15 p.m., her room was empty. Markers rolled across the floor as if dropped in a hurry. Her window stood open, though her mother distinctly remembered closing it against the afternoon chill. The colony erupted. Jinna's father, a respected engineer, demanded action. Her mother, Dr. Park, analyzed every scrap of evidence she could find. The colony's governor, Han Ta-won, finally ordered a full-scale investigation using every resource available. That's when they found the first real clue. A security camera on the colony's outer ring had captured something unusual. A shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. When the footage was enhanced, they saw it. A sleek silver ship, nearly invisible thanks to advanced stealth technology. On its hull, clear as day, was the insignia of the Galactic Council's research division. The Galactic Council was supposed to be humanity's friend. They had welcomed Earth into the galactic community 50 years ago, helped establish colonies like New Sol, and shared some of their technology. But now, watching that footage over and over, Governor Han felt sick to his stomach. He immediately contacted Earth, sending the footage through secure channels. But before Earth could respond, they struck again. This time, they took Young-ho Kim, Jinna's best friend. Young-ho had been braver than most 8-year-olds. When the shimmer appeared in his room, he didn't freeze like the others. Security footage from his room's camera, installed after Jinna's disappearance, showed him throwing his tablet at the invisible intruders. For a brief moment, the stealth field flickered, revealing tall, silvery figures with elongated limbs. Then there was a flash of blue light, and Young-ho crumpled to the floor. The figures scooped him up and vanished. The colony descended into panic. Parents pulled their children from schools. Some families barricaded themselves in their homes. Others demanded immediate evacuation. Governor Han tried to maintain order, but he knew the truth. They were helpless against an enemy that could simply reach in and take their children at will. Earth's response, when it came, was immediate and fierce. The United Earth Defense Fleet dispatched 3 warships to New Sol. Marines in powered armor began patrolling the streets. Every home received emergency shields designed to prevent teleportation. But for the families of Min-Ki, Sunmei, Jinna, Young-ho, and the others, it was too late. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness of space, their children were in the hands of beings who saw them as nothing more than test subjects. The parents gathered each night, holding pictures of their missing children, sharing stories, and quietly weeping. The answer came in the form of explosive breaching charges detonating simultaneously at 3 points around the station. Through the smoke and chaos, human soldiers in advanced combat suits stormed in. Their weapons fired with deadly precision, using stun settings on the scientists but lethal force on any security forces that resisted. Commander Kim led Alpha Team straight toward the detention levels. Jin-Ah's neural map guided them through the station's corridors, avoiding major security checkpoints. When they encountered resistance, it was brief and brutal. In her chamber, Jin-Ah felt the vibrations of combat through the metal table. She reached out through her neural link, connecting with the other children. Asterisk, they're here, just like I promised. Hold on, asterisk. The first detention level fell in minutes. Commander Kim's team found 15 children, scared but alive. Marine medics immediately began treating them while the assault continued. Each child had a story of horror. Each bore wounds that would take time to heal. Delta Team, breach point 3. Commander Kim ordered as they approached the second level. Charlie Team, cover R6. These kids are going home today. Director Krall tried to organize a defense, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for the fury of human soldiers rescuing their children. His security forces, used to dealing with peaceful researchers and compliant test subjects, crumbled before the onslaught. Jin-Ah heard the fighting getting closer. Using her neural link one last time, she short-circuited the energy restraints holding her and the other children in her section. By the time Commander Kim's team breached the door, she had already helped 3 other children to their feet. Jin-Ah Park. Commander Kim knelt before the small, brave girl who had made this rescue possible. Your parents are waiting. She looked up at him with tired but determined eyes. There are more children on level 3, the youngest ones. We need to hurry. The aliens were planning to move them today. The final push to level 3 was the hardest. The Council's forces had regrouped, using the narrow corridors to their advantage. But they hadn't counted on Jin-Ah's intimate knowledge of the station's systems. At her direction, Commander Kim's team used maintenance shafts and service corridors to outflank the defenders. They found the youngest children, some barely old enough to walk, in a heavily secured ward. The sight of what had been done to them drove the rescue team to cold fury. Commander Kim had to remind his soldiers to maintain discipline, to remember their primary mission. All teams, report, he called as they secured the last chamber. How many? The numbers came in from each team. 43 children in total, all alive. Some were injured, many were traumatized, but they had survived. Jin-Ah's data had been perfect. They hadn't missed a single child. The evacuation began immediately. Special medical ships docked with the station, their crews trained specifically for treating the rescued children. Each child was carefully transported, monitored, comforted. Director Krall, captured trying to reach an escape pod, watched in disbelief as his research subjects were taken away. You don't understand. He tried to tell Commander Kim the potential benefits to the galaxy. Commander Kim's armored fist cut off whatever justification the alien was about to offer. They're not subjects. They're children. Remember that in your prison cell. The reunion happened on the medical ship Mercy. Jin-Ah's parents had been waiting there, along with other families. Park Min-ho, known throughout New Seoul for his steady composure, broke down completely when he saw his daughter. He grabbed her in a gentle but fierce hug, tears streaming down his face. Dr. Park Hae-jin held her family close for a long moment, then immediately switched to doctor mode. She had prepared for this, studying every piece of data Jin-Ah had sent about the children's conditions. Within hours, she was leading a team of physicians treating the rescued children. The news spread across human space. Every colony, every station, every ship received the footage. They saw the children being rescued, saw the reunions, saw justice being delivered. But most importantly, they saw Jin-Ah, the little girl who had never given up, who had used her mind to defeat an enemy that thought humans were primitive. Commander Kim found her later, sitting with her parents in the medical bay. The other children, she asked immediately, are they okay? He nodded. Thanks to you. Your intel saved them all. Saved our troops too. You're a hero, Jin-Ah. As she approached the podium, Jinnah touched the small neural implant still visible behind her ear. The same device that had helped her save the other children now served as a reminder of humanity's promise to the galaxy. Distinguished representatives, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Today marks 20 years since the reform. 20 years since we proved that advancement without compassion is meaningless. 20 years since the galaxy learned that the measure of civilization is not its technology, but how it treats its most vulnerable members. Many of the older delegates shifted uncomfortably. They remembered the war, remembered watching planets crack apart, remembered how humanity's primitive fury had reshaped the galaxy. Young Ho Kim, now Earth's defense minister, sat in the front row. Like Jinnah, he carried scars from Station Delta, but they had made him stronger. His son played safely at home, protected by laws written in the aftermath of war. The Children's Protection Act has been challenged 17 times in 2 decades, Jinnah continued. Each time, we remember why it exists. Each time, we stand firm. The chamber's displays showed images from across the galaxy. Schools where children of different species learn together, hospitals with special wings for treating young ones of all races, research facilities with transparent ethics boards and multiple safeguards. Some call these measures extreme, she acknowledged. They say we go too far, spend too much, worry too much. To them, I show this. She touched her neural implant, and the chamber filled with her memories. The pain, the fear, the determination to survive. Many delegates flinched away, but she made them watch. This is what happens when we forget, when we decide some children matter less than others, when we place progress above protection. In the diplomatic section, the Meridian ambassador's crystalline form pulsed with sympathetic light. Their own young ones, once vulnerable to exploitation, now grew safely under the new laws. The Vosh representatives clicked their mandibles in agreement. They had become some of the strongest advocates for child protection. Today, we vote on extending these protections further, Jinnah announced, to ensure that no world, no matter how distant, can become a haven for those who would harm the young. The vote was unanimous. In the 20 years since the war, no one had dared oppose Earth on matters concerning children. The memory of shattered planets and atomized research stations remained too fresh. After the session, Jinnah stood at the chamber's great window, looking out at the rebuilt world. Earth had changed since the war. Humanity had changed. They remained fierce protectors, but had learned to channel that protection into creation rather than destruction. A young Meridian crystal child approached her, its facets glowing with curiosity. Ambassador Park, it chimed, is it true that you were one of the children? That you fought the old council? Jinnah knelt beside the child, noting how its guardian watched protectively. A change from the old days when Meridians saw their young as replaceable. Yes, she said softly. I was one of them. And because of what happened, you never have to be afraid like we were. The child's glow brightened. My guardian says humans are scary but good. That you break bad things to build better things. Sometimes, Jinnah agreed, love looks like destruction, but only when it must. Later, in her office, she reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Another attempt to establish a secret research facility, this time in the Outer Rim, had been stopped before it began. The mere rumor of human involvement had sent the perpetrators fleeing. Young Ho joined her, bringing news from the Defense Ministry. The planet crackers are still out there, he reminded her. Still ready, just in case. She nodded. Humanity had kept its weapons, not as a threat, but as a promise. Never again would children suffer while adults debated ethics and politics. The stars shone through her window. Countless worlds, countless young ones, all sleeping safely under laws written in the language of broken planets and shattered stations. The galaxy had learned its lesson. When someone whispered, "Remember the humans," they didn't mean the war. They meant the choice, protect the children, or face the consequences. Jinnah touched her neural implant one last time before heading home. Its surface was smooth now, worn by years of unconscious touches. Like the galaxy itself, it had been transformed from a tool of torment into something better. The humans had kept their promise. Never again. President Choi smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "We're not as primitive as you think." Jinna Park, a 7-year-old human child, broke through your best security systems with a medical implant. Imagine what our adults can do. The chamber erupted in voices as more representatives pledged support to Earth. The Council's diplomats looked increasingly worried. They had expected Earth to beg for mercy or attempt negotiation. Instead, they faced absolute resolve. 24 hours, President Choi repeated. After that, humanity will show you exactly what primitive means. As the delegates filed out, carrying Earth's message to their homeworlds, Admiral Song approached the podium. "The fleet is ready, Madam President. At your command." President Choi nodded. "They won't surrender. They're too proud, too convinced of their superiority. Make sure our allies' ships are clear of Council space before we begin." The message spread across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, beings watched the evidence of the Council's crimes. They saw the rescued children, heard their stories, understood the depth of the atrocities committed. In the medical facility where the rescued children were recovering, Jin-Ah watched the broadcast with her parents. When President Choi finished speaking, she turned to her father. "They're really going to fight, aren't they?" Park Min-ho hugged his daughter close. "They hurt children. Our children. The galaxy needs to learn that some lines can't be crossed." As the 24-hour deadline approached, humanity prepared for war. Not a war of conquest or resources, but a war of justice. A war to protect children, not just human children, but all children. The Council had awakened something they didn't understand. They thought they were dealing with primitives. They were about to learn that sometimes primitive wasn't a weakness. Sometimes primitive meant being willing to burn down the galaxy to protect what matters most. The countdown began. Humanity was going to war. The bridge of the UES Infinity fell silent as Fleet Admiral Song studied the holographic display of the target world. Calax 7, an uninhabited Council planet used for weapons research. The perfect test site for humanity's response. "Begin the countdown," she ordered, her voice carrying no emotion. "All ships maintain safe distance. We only get one chance to demonstrate what Project Nemesis can do." The massive weapon, mounted on a specially built carrier ship, powered up slowly. Its energy readings climbed higher than anything humanity had ever created before. Dr. Lee's voice came through the comm system. "Device at 90% capacity. Target locked." The Council had ignored their ultimatum, just as expected. Now they would learn the price of their arrogance. Fire. The beam that struck Calax 7 was almost beautiful. It pierced the planet's crust, like a needle through paper. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the planet began to crack, brilliant lines of energy spreading across its surface like glowing veins. "Energy reaction spreading through planetary core," reported the science officer. "Breakup imminent." Calax 7 didn't explode, it disintegrated. The planet cracker lived up to its name, reducing an entire world to fragments no larger than a small asteroid. Where a planet had been, now floated a new asteroid field. Admiral Song opened a channel to all Council frequencies. This was a demonstration. You have one more chance to surrender. On the UES Vengeance, Captain Yoon Ha-won watched the destruction with grim satisfaction. His hand touched the photo of his son he kept on his command console, one of the children rescued from Station Delta. The boy's nightmares still hadn't stopped. The Council's response came within hours. More arrogance, more threats. They couldn't believe that humanity would dare strike their core worlds. They were wrong. 3 days later, the planet cracker turned its attention to Vex Prime, the Council's primary shipyard world. This time, they made sure to wait until all civilian ships had evacuated. Humanity would have its revenge, but they wouldn't become monsters in the process. Captain Yoon led the attack on the research facilities. His fleet struck simultaneously at 12 different stations, each one a mirror of Station Delta. The Vengeance's weapons burned through their defenses like paper. She shook her head. I just did what anyone would do. I kept hoping, kept fighting. Like Mom and Dad always taught me. The liberation of Station Delta became more than just a rescue mission. It became a symbol of what humanity could do when united. The footage of parents reuniting with their children, of the careful way the soldiers handled even their enemies, of Jinnah's bravery. It all painted a picture that the galaxy wouldn't soon forget. The message was clear. Humanity would protect its children, no matter the cost. And those who dared harm them would face not just defeat, but justice. As the medical ships headed home, Jinnah finally slept safely in her parents' arms. The nightmare was over, but its lessons would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The Great Hall of United Earth Headquarters fell silent as President Choi Eun-ji walked to the podium. Hundreds of diplomats from Earth's nations and representatives from alien worlds watched. The massive screens behind her flickered to life, ready to broadcast her message across the galaxy. She stood straight, her face calm but her eyes burning with controlled anger. The evidence Jinnah had gathered was organized in front of her: recordings, medical data, research logs, everything that proved the Council's crimes. To all sentient beings across the galaxy, she began, her voice steady and clear. I speak today not just as the President of United Earth, but as a parent. What I am about to show you will disturb you. It should disturb you. Because if it doesn't, you have lost something fundamental to all intelligent life: the desire to protect the innocent. The screens began playing Jinnah's recordings. Children strapped to tables, crying out in pain. Clinical notes describing tests that were nothing short of torture. Medical readings showing the physical and mental trauma inflicted on young bodies and minds. In the audience, the Meridian ambassador's color shifted from blue to deep purple, a sign of extreme distress in their species. The Vosh representatives chittered angrily among themselves, their protective instincts roused by the sight of suffering children. The Galactic Council, President Choi continued, authorized these acts. They selected our children for experimentation because they believed we were too weak to stop them, too primitive to protect our own. More evidence appeared on the screens: official council documents authorizing the research, funding approvals, transportation records. Jinnah had found it all, hidden in Station Delta's computers. To those who participated in these crimes, know this: there will be justice. To those who authorized them, understand, there will be consequences. And to those who stood by knowing this was happening, remember, your silence made you complicit. The Meridian ambassadors stood first, their crystalline form vibrating with emotion. The Meridian Collective withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We stand with Earth. The Vosh followed, their spokesperson's antennae quivering with rage. The Vosh hives sever all ties with the Council. We too stand with Earth. One by one, younger spacefaring races declared their support. Species that had felt bullied or pressured by the Council saw their chance to break free. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting before everyone's eyes. The Council's response came swiftly. Supreme Counselor Vex's hologram appeared in the chamber, his expression one of practiced condescension. These theatrical displays are beneath the dignity of the Council, he declared. Humanity remains what it has always been: primitive apes playing with technology beyond their understanding. President Choi's response was ice cold. We understand enough. We understand that you took our children. We understand that you hurt them. And we understand exactly what we're going to do about it. She pressed a button on her podium. New images appeared. The United Earth fleet gathering in orbit. Weapons platforms activating across the solar system. The massive form of Project Nemesis emerging from its lunar cradle. You call us primitive. She leaned forward, her voice carrying the weight of every parent's rage. Let me tell you what primitive humans do to those who harm our children. We hunt them. We find them. We make them pay. The council delegation began to look uneasy. This wasn't the diplomatic groveling they had expected. This wasn't the fear they were used to inspiring in younger races. Here are our terms, President Choi announced. Surrender all individuals involved in the experimentation program. Submit to a full investigation of all council research facilities. Agree to new laws protecting children of all species. You have 24 hours to comply. Supreme Counselor Vex laughed. Or what? You'll attack the council. Hundreds of worlds. Thousands of ships. With your primitive fleet. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They had assumed human neural implants were simple medical devices. They hadn't bothered to shield against them or even study them properly. Their hubris would be their downfall. In his observation room, Krell prepared his daily report to the council. Human children continue to show remarkable resilience. Their neural plasticity exceeds all known species. Once we understand the mechanism, we can begin applying this knowledge to improve other races. He paused, considering. They seem to form strong social bonds, even in isolation. Subjects 17 and 23 show synchronized brainwave patterns despite being in separate chambers. Further study needed. Jin-Ah listened through the station's internal sensors. Every piece of information helped. Every detail could mean the difference between escape and captivity. Through her neural link, she had already mapped most of the station. She knew where they kept the other children, knew the patrol patterns of the guards, knew the weaknesses in their security systems. More importantly, she had discovered something they desperately wanted to keep hidden. Station Delta wasn't just a research facility. It was part of a larger program, one aimed at weaponizing human adaptability. The council wasn't studying them out of scientific curiosity. They wanted to create better soldiers, better slaves. As another wave of pain washed over her from their latest test, Jin-Ah transformed her suffering into determination. Each burst of data she sent toward Earth contained more than just information. It carried her pain, her fear, her anger. When these messages reached Earth, they would understand. They would come. Sir, a researcher interrupted Krell's report. We're detecting some unusual energy fluctuations in the communication array. Krell barely looked up. Run a diagnostic. It's probably just solar interference. His attention returned to Jin-Ah's readings. Prepare for the next phase of testing. Let's see how they handle genetic recombination. In her chamber, Jin-Ah allowed herself a small smile. The aliens thought they were so superior, so advanced. But they had forgotten something fundamental about humans, especially human children. We adapt. We learn. We survive. She sent out another burst of data, this one containing Station Delta's defense codes. Then she reached out to the other children through their neural network. Hold on, she told them. Earth is coming. And when they do, the council will learn why humans are so protective of their children. Director Krell continued his observations, unaware that his test subjects were far more than mere experiments. He couldn't see that every cruel test, every painful procedure, was being recorded and transmitted. He didn't realize that his research facility had already been compromised by the very beings he thought inferior. In the cold darkness of space, Station Delta continued its grim work. But within its walls, the children waited. They endured. And through their neural implants, they prepared for the day when humanity would come to claim its own. The Council's hubris would be their undoing. They had chosen to hurt children, thinking there would be no consequences. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Admiral Song Jai-Yun stood in the dimly lit command center of Earth Defense Headquarters when the first transmission arrived. The message was fragmented, corrupted, but clear enough to make her blood run cold. Through the static and noise, she saw images of children strapped to tables, heard their muffled cries, felt their pain encoded in bursts of neural data. "Get me verification," she shouted, her voice echoing through the command center. Dozens of analysts scrambled to process the incoming data stream. And someone tell me how these transmissions are getting through our quantum channels. The answer came from Dr. Yoon, head of Earth's Neural Interface Division. Admiral, the signals are being routed through the children's medical implants. They've found a way to interface with alien technology. More transmissions poured in. Jinnah's clever mind had found ways to embed massive amounts of data in seemingly random neural noise. Station schematics, defense codes, research logs, and most damning of all, proof that the Galactic Council had authorized these experiments.